Hey you guys, welcome to a doom and gloom rainy day budget update for April and May. This video is one of those cases where you know how you sometimes have a small task that you just set aside and then the next day you set it aside again and then it's 2 months later and you still haven't done the thing. That is what we're doing today. This is the thing. If you're new here, have been doing a sort of low buy slash loud budgeting slash just trying to get my financial life back together, reset this year. That is my goal for 2024, is to reestablish old habits, reestablish good money habits overall, return to a more frugal and simpler type of lifestyle, using up what I have, not buying as compulsively, just reestablishing habits that I had in place for several years, and then the pandemic kind of like threw that for a loop. Aside from that, also like just personal goals that I'm building towards, the somewhat maybe one day attainable dream of owning a home, etc. So just reestablishing those good money habits and rebuilding my base. I've been a solid saver for years. I've been investing for the last few years, and now I want to try to do something with that. And in order to do so, I need to have these good habits in place once again so that I can more effectively control where my money flows to. So in March, I wrapped up the first quarter of the year, and I assessed the savings that I had done month to month, tracked where my problem areas are, and have been working on those. For April and May, I struggled a little bit, but I feel like I'm finally getting back to those old habits I had. So I'm going to keep this brief. We're going to go into the struggle areas and the successes. So for April, going back, I did in fact have $516 left over at the end of the month from my budget. So overall, I was able to reduce spending in several areas, and I was able to more accurately track my money in little places where I was struggling with. So here I did not buy any clothes that month, which was good. I have a small budget for clothing, just for essentials and stuff. No clothing. I had leftovers in groceries. I only went over 140 in the eating out category. And if you've been following along with this journey, you know that that's one of my struggles. Not so much because I eat out too often, but because the cost of going out to eat, whether it is fast food or just fast casual or even just a slightly higher end thing, is just ridiculously overpriced in my area. I live in Miami. Everything is expensive. From, your gas station compulsive pickup of a coffee or something to your going to, a little mom and pop restaurant. Like everything is overpriced. And I feel like lately I don't make any purchases that are under $20. And that is for like a simple thing. I went to McDonald's for a couple of drinks and some fries just because I was like craving something salty, and I picked up 2 drinks for myself and my partner, and that was like just under $9. So that gives you an idea of like what the expenses look like overall around here. So I was $140 over from my budget. Not that bad. I set a $250 budget for eating out. I'm trying, it's a little bit restrictive, but I'm trying to see if I can make that work. Some months I get closer, other months I'm a little further away. This month was decent. I did also take my mom out a couple times. So there were a few instances in April where I had to drive her around. She had a couple of procedures in April and May, and over those 2 months, there were a few instances where I invited her out to eat, and there were also instances where I invite my partner out to eat, and so those are the areas that I am still struggling with a little bit. I went over slightly in self-care, but that's a very small budget to begin with, and I only went over by $11, so not a big deal. And that was because I did treat myself to a haircut in April, so that was an unexpected expense, but not one that comes around regularly. I went over my coffee budget by about $10, and that's also because there were a couple of instances where I just needed to grab something quick and I popped into a coffee shop. There were a few gifts, but I did not go over in that budget area. I was about $30 under my electric bill, which I know is going to be a problem going forward because we have hit the hellish months of summer in Florida. And though today it is nice and cool because of all the rain, it's been a rainy week. We've been having some storms. The averages have been in the high 90s and it feels like death. So my air conditioner has been doing the job. My bills are going to reflect that. I was under in groceries, so that was nice. So groceries and eating out balanced out. I had $159 left over in groceries, which was good. We were doing fine. I was like just under in my low buy budget, so that's good. I do set myself $100 budget to do whatever I want with, and I stayed under that. I also have a special category that I have talked about before that I call One Nice Date. I do just assign like $100 to do something nice for myself and my partner, at least, you know, whatever that is. And so we had a couple of dates. We went out. It will be thundering in just a second if you didn't notice the lightning. There it is. There it is. So we had a few nice dates. So the money was spread a little bit. So we went slightly over, but not by much. It was only over by $34 out of 100. You know, 134 was the max. A few miscellaneous expenses that I had in April. I took my mom to a festival, so that was something we had not done in years. I have no regrets about that. We had never been to a festival since my grandmother became really ill and she was her full-time caretaker, so this was like 5 years or so at least. So that was nice to get out and take her out, and so about just under $80 was spent there. So that was an unplanned expense, but not a regret. I also, in April, if you recall, at the end of my March budget video, I mentioned that I had damaged my knee. It was really damaged, so I did need to buy some knee support materials as well as some pain support materials as well, like creams and lotions and things to ease the swelling and the pain. That was another like extra like 40 some odd dollars that I hadn't expected, in addition to the medical costs. So that happened. However, I did have a major win because among the expenses that I was like dreading was physical therapy. I knew that physical therapy was going to be required because I had already injured that knee a couple times before. Luckily, I was able to find that my insurance offered a program that allowed me to get physical therapy for free. So I was able to do that, and I have, where did I put that? I set aside like my estimated cost for what it would have actually cost for me to get therapy, and where did it go? So I had estimated that it would cost me about $480, so that is $480 that I did not have to spend, luckily, so that was a win for me. So that was everything. I also had a $50 went over, again, because with the knee, I had to do a couple follow-up visits, a couple x-rays, so I normally budget $40 for medical expenses a month because, as I've mentioned before, I have chronic health issues, and so I regularly have to visit my doctor. This time I had to go a little bit over, so that was $50. So overall, $516 left over at the end of my month for April, which is a win. Now, May, slightly under that, I had $356 left over. Again, a major win, especially if you've been here from the beginning, where I was really struggling those first few months to get some of that, particularly the food spending, under control. As I said, I'm not being militant with myself, I'm just relearning old habits. So in May, I had upped my eating out budget just slightly, again, because I had noticed that it was really hard for me to stick to that $250, so I upped it to $300, and I was under by $584. So $300 felt like a more realistic amount, and that's what I'm going with for June as well. I did not spend anything on my self-care fund. I spent a little bit over in my coffee budget, again, because had to get a few emergency outings. This was actually the month when I took my mom to get the surgery that I was taking her to visits for in April. So the only thing around that day was actually a Starbucks, and I ended up just having to go buy a meal there. I normally budget $25 for like actual coffees at Starbucks. I don't normally eat there, but if in a pinch it's the only place I can find food, then I do. A few more gifts because May was also my mother's birthday, so my $100 gift budget that I set aside every month because I know gifts come up, so I just assign that money a purpose from the beginning and go with it. I actually had $454 left over at the end of the month, so that is good. I stayed within that budget. It was also my niece's birthday, so I had my mom's birthday, Mother's Day, and my niece's birthday, so I managed to stay right under in there. We had $31 left over in my electric budget that month. Like I said, I think that I normally estimate 135. That's around the max that I've had in the last year. The state recently lowered some of our fuel prices, so I'm hoping to see that stay somewhere around that sort of ballpark figure. But with the heat that we've been having in June, and we have not even hit the peak of terrible summer in Florida, I anticipate it's going to start getting closer. So I'm taking these wins as I can. I think my camera's about to die. So let's see. Any other struggle areas? Very quickly. Stayed in on my low buy, stayed in on my one nice date. And I will pause and recharge, so stay tuned for part 2. And with that, we have the magic of electricity, as we were speaking of. So we were very quickly going through, as I was saying, I was fine on the low buy and the one nice date budgets. I had leftovers in both of those categories. I struggled, I wouldn't say struggled, but like I spent more than I expected in the clothing budget. So I normally set myself, as I said before, a $50 budget just in case I need replacements or new things, etc. My body fluctuates and I have a lot of like gut disorders, so sometimes I just need to buy something a little bit more comfy, and I've been just upgrading my wardrobe in that sense. So this time I had a few opportunities to get some things that I've been long looking at on my wish list. They were on sale, so I picked up a couple of pieces and I went over by $27. So not that bad. Slight increase there. I also had a few writing expenses. So both my Scrivener purchase went through this month because I upgraded Scrivener on my Mac, and Pro Writing Aid, which is one of the editing softwares that I use to clean up my writing, renewed this year. I would like to invest in the lifetime membership for that one, but right now the almost $400 just weren't in the cards, but maybe next year. I've been paying for it for at least 3 years now, and I know that realistically paying the one-time cost of like the $389 I think that it costs for lifetime would be a much better investment than continuing to pay year by year, but that was just not happening this year. So that was $109 that were unexpected, or at least just not really budgeted for in that sense. They came out of my writing fund that I build throughout the year. A few miscellaneous expenses went over in that area. A few parking fees for medical visits, vet bills, because I did have to take one of my cats to the vet this month for checkups. I also took my mom out again for a few meals and things, so that happened, and gifts for a person who was retiring at work. So we all chipped in on that. Now, the big area where I added the expenses, but the expenses are mostly coming back to me, is that I did go out to a conference in May. It was a professional conference that I attended for work, and so I did tally up my expenses. Out of pocket, it was about $222. I will be reimbursed for part of that, not all of it, but that is okay. At least it is something. And it didn't include the full cost of the conference. My institution paid for that. So those are, added expenses that came out of my funds for now. We were good in all of my personal fund areas, and apartment maintenance, we were good. I upped my planned spending for medical this month to $150 because I know that I have more medical appointments coming up, and I did have some extras last month as well. Stayed fine. I actually had $85 remaining after all of my medical costs this month, but I did go over in medicine and vitamin spending this month. I, for reasons, take a number of supplements to address certain health issues that I have, and this was just another one of those months where a lot of them came in, and so I went over by $47. So where one goes over, another one stays under, and they end up balancing out. But overall, I had $356 left over, and I should be getting back just around the $200 that I spent on the conference. So I hope that that will balance out as well. But for now, I'm doing pretty good. And as I said, I'm seeing those areas of struggle finally becoming less of a struggle and just more of a natural part of my spending habits. So like relying less on eating out, making more meals at home, being better about meal planning, especially having quick meals in the freezer that I can rely on when I have a migraine. That's been one of my struggles, particularly in the first few months of this year, and especially in May, because I had a major migraine attack that started around April and really just kept going. It doesn't happen too often, but every so often I'll get what are called intractable migraines, which just mean like it's an ongoing migraine that just goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time, and I have moments of like peace in my head and then it comes right back. So being prepared for that is crucial for me. So that has meant having more freezer meals that I pre-make, and also having just quick meals that I can buy and just toss into a pan and call it a day. I don't have a microwave for personal reasons of space. I didn't want to sacrifice space for a microwave when my last one broke. So I traded a microwave for an air fryer, and I just need meals that I can quickly heat on the stove or the air fryer instead. When you live in a tiny apartment, you make some sacrifices, and that was one of them. So that is where my low buy budget stands right now. In June, I am so far doing well. I have not been seeing too much spending in like the personal lifestyle categories, at least so far. I need to do a major grocery shop, so I know this will be a more spendy month for groceries. I do need to go to like one of the bulk buy stores and just buy up all the essentials because I am finally running out. I'm trying to live in such a way where I only buy what I want and will actually finish, and I don't buy in excess. But that also means that there are months where everything kind of just runs out and I have to restock. So it feels like a lot of money once that happens, but it balances out. Other areas I'm doing fine. I have a couple of medical appointments coming up this month, so that will happen too. And it is also my birthday, so I gave myself a $200 spending budget and have spent about half of it on books. So there's that. But I will keep those details for the end of the month and check in with you guys later. So, you know, one of those things, not such a big deal to do this video. Now I have to edit it and clean up the transcript, but getting to this point, I think partly because the migraines are so bad, getting here just felt so much more like a task than it needed to. And that's why I apologize for the big delay on this one. But I was tracking, I was keeping up with the actual practice. I just wasn't getting around to the videos. And it's just one of those things that happens. I realize that I can't do it all. There's too much going on in my life right now, and sometimes things fall by the wayside. And unfortunately, when things have to fall by the wayside, usually this channel is one of the first things to go. So apologies for the delays if you've been keeping up with this whole journey. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate all of your comments. And even if I don't reply, I do always read them, and they always just kind of give me a little thrill. It's always interesting to me that people are interested in following along and caring about what's going on. I hope that this kind of video is also helpful to you and helping you figure out where you're going with your journeys, and knowing that you're not alone in this process. None of us are perfect, and sometimes striving for perfection just leads to paralysis. So It's a learning experience. We learn as we go. I will check in with you guys later, hopefully on a better weather day. But for now, good luck and have a great day wherever you are. Bye, guys.